Hello and welcome to Power Women by Value Research, a special series where we engage in insightful conversations with accomplished women from within and beyond the world of finance. Today, I'm joined by Geetanjali Sachwani. She's Vice President and Head of Marketing at Franklin Templeton. Welcome, Geetanjali.
Thank you, Ruchira. Happy to be here.
Great, great. Good to have you here. Now, to kick off our conversation and set the stage, let's start with your very first investment. When did you make it and what was it?
It's so amazing that I've been in the industry for in the BFSI space for about 18 years now. And this is the first time I'm being asked this question because, it's always been more so on the marketing and the advertising front and as, an insider. So no one's really asked me this question. And I think I'm so excited to even think about what I'm going to say. So I think I started working mid 20s, and I think that was the time that I landed up with my first job. And I come from a very strong woman household, and being independent and taking your own financial decisions was the thing. It wasn't a fad, or it wasn't a phase, or anything like that. It was basic hygiene in the household. But yes, my first investment was a simple SIP in a mutual fund, nothing glamorous, but it did teach me, the power of consistency and compounding. Looking back, I just think that it was not just about the amount, but it was about, building a habit, and I think that was very important for me as a learning and a takeaway.
Right. When it comes to investing, are there any mentors you look up to for inspiration or guidance?
Of course, I think I draw inspiration from a mix of mentors. There isn't like one or two people, right? Some I have met, some I have read, and some I work for. So I admire Benjamin Franklin, John Templeton, Warren Buffett. All of them for their clarity and the long term thinking that they bring home. But more than that, something closer to home is the people around me. My mother, she's the biggest saver I know. My sister, who's a conservative but a smart investor. My global CEO, Jenny Johnson. Colleagues in the India office, and even friends who inspire me every day for their discipline, the resilience, the fact that you need to, have an instinctive understanding of the value, and that, finance is not just about numbers, but it's about the goals you set for yourself, the confidence and the courage you take some decisions.
Right. Now, Gitanjali, as a woman in the traditionally male-dominated financial industry, did you face any challenges in your career?
Yes, not so much when I was younger, and when I just started off, but yes, as I grew up the corporate ladder, we did see some challenges come through over a period of time. And I think maybe I'll just call out two of them in this conversation. One is, the fact that, and I probably just share a story, right? So this was when I was working in one of the organizations, and I was given feedback in my early days that I was a soft leader, and that I needed to be tougher. And that's when I took the feedback in the right spirit. And but when you try and exercise being aggressive, being assertive, being confident and saying what you want and like the way you want it, it's perceived as bossy.
Right.
Whereas when men exhibit the same traits, they're seen as strong leaders.
Yep.
So, I think constantly that if my solution to that is, women are, I would like to believe that we generally carry a higher EQ, and therefore you balance this whole thing of being bossy or being aggressive or being your normal self at work, but at the same time just trying to balance the IQ and the EQ for your team. And I think that that plays an important role. And when I say that, I say this with a very conscious fact that, women, we have this likability penalty that we pay for, that, or we want to be liked liked by everybody. It's all right. Some may be able to take it, and some may not be strong enough to take us as we are. So I think we need to go beyond that. And I think a second one, where I think, again, I'm going to share a story with you. We were having an agency meeting, and it's an example I give in many of the panel discussions because I think there is a learning for everybody, and it was including for me as well. It was a meeting that we were having, and it was an equal participation from men and women from the agency as well as from my team. And it was amazing that all the men took the table chair, which is it's like an oval table in the boardroom, you could imagine that. And many chairs are kept to the table, right? And there was a second circle of chairs that was around it, and all the men took the chair aligned to the table, and all the women took the second row of chairs. This kind of, for me, was the fact that we usually underestimate our capabilities, our abilities, and we're not very confident of ourselves. And we think we don't deserve to be sitting at that table. So I think somewhere we need to recognize our achievements, have our voices on the table, and be confident about it, right? Because no one's really going to come and invite you and say, yes, please, you can come and take the chair. You have to take what you deserve. And it's called the imposter syndrome. And, I think it's about, if you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get onto it.
Well, that's a very strong thought there. Now, what are the barriers that women face when it comes to investing? And what do you think are the steps that can be taken to break them down?
Heavy duty question there, Ruchira. Usually, as one of the societal norms, men are the default, set of people to go to for anything to do with finance, money. Even when we have get-togethers and dinner parties, or our weekend do's, you'll see men catch up with each other, and the instant conversation would be on the stock markets, and oh, they're tanking, oh, the market's picked up. And women would then be talking about which is the next Netflix show to watch, or what's happening in their respective lives or in the lives of their children. I think we need to break those stereotypes, because things are changing, and women need to, if they're interested and if they want to participate in this conversation, they need to get confident of themselves. And confidence comes from getting yourself equipped with knowledge on the subject. Read up as much as you can, and collect information which can make you take informed decisions, right? And you don't have to get it right the first time. And it's all right if things don't go your way the first time or the first few times, but you need to make sure that the confidence is packaged well with the knowledge, and that can come with reading, with spending time on things that can help you decode finance. So I think, yeah.
Okay, you just mentioned that men are the go-to people for investments. That brings
Default.
Yeah, the default go-to people for investment. So that brings me to my next question. Franklin Templeton's Change the Soch campaign that has gained significant attention for addressing gender disparity in finance. Well, for those unfamiliar, it highlights how the same financial advice can be received differently based on the gender of the advisor. So, Geetanjali, could you share more about this campaign and its impact on promoting financial inclusivity for women?
Yes, Ruchira. The campaign's very close to my heart. It is a bold step toward dismantling gender biases in finance. We wanted to attempt reshaping societal perceptions of women's roles in wealth creation and management. So, the campaign does instill long-term historical, cultural change by shifting mindsets and fostering a more inclusive financial narrative. So it is challenging the stereotypes, right? As I said even earlier, men are the default people to go to. But the campaign comes from the thought that, generally, whenever you're talking, and I can give you, examples from my personal life. Whenever I'm talking to a broker, a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician, or to even people in the office, there are absolute biases where you are making the point, you're putting the money on the table, but the eye contact is usually maintained with the male member in the meeting. And why does that happen? Because people think that all the serious things or things related to finance and intense decisions are usually taken by men. And therefore, we wanted to break that stereotypical thinking and say that women are equal to men. And with that, we wanted to bring more women into the financial ecosystem, whether as investors, distributor partners, advisors, and just showcase that women are as capable or knowledgeable about financial matters as men are. We tried to do this through a storytelling approach. And I think it's been powerful for several reasons, right? It's the instant recognition of bias. By just swapping the voice, we've kept the content the same. It's ditto. The script had the same dialogue for a woman and a man. But the campaign exposes how audiences may unconsciously respond differently to financial advice based on the gender. So we took voice as platform or that medium to bring about that change. It makes you look up, and that's where it causes or has created this emotional and cognitive disruption. The unexpected shift in voice, right? You're not expecting it. It's like, oh, I didn't understand. And it just confronts your own biases, right? It creates an aha moment that is both emotional and intellectually engaging. So I think the fact that it is simple, it brings about explaining bias in simple ways rather than complex ways or just being preachy about it. I think it's a very serious message wrapped up in an aha moment.
I think it hits you at the right spot, and I hope it will bring about the change it intends to.
Oh, it is actually, it's a very encouraging response and reflects the need, the fact that you and I resonate with it. We've been through it in some form or the other. We do feel the need for change the Soch.
Now, considering your experience in the industry, what advice do you have for women just beginning to invest? How can they gain more confidence in making financial decisions?
Uh, I think I'll just keep it simple, right? Start small, but start now. Like now. Don't wait for that utopian world for, to feel ready. Confidence follows action. So begin with whatever you have in hand. Begin with whatever you understand. It may not be the right amount. It may not be a big amount. It may not be the most real decision or the right fund for you, or it may not be the right investment avenue at this moment as well. But just begin, make a start, because investing isn't about, as everybody knows, timing the market, right? It's about the time you spend in the market. I remember my sister always quoting this example and saying, do nothing, invest and just forget about it. Don't do anything. She invested a lakh in one of the funds 25 years back. That 1 lakh has become 25 lakhs. What did she do about it? Just nothing. She just stayed invested. And that's my biggest learning from her story. So own your journey. You don't need to know everything to begin. Just take enough to make the first step.
That brings me to the last question. What steps can women take to improve their financial literacy, and how can financial institutions support this process?
Yes, so financial literacy, Ruchira, starts with access, but it grows with relevance, right? Women need content that speaks their language, linked to real life goals, real life situations, not just jargons. So I think we need to uh, have more of these conversations, make money a part of our conversations and not just once in a way, peeping into a conversation that's talking about money. I think we need to go out there and look for information that can help us take those informed decisions, and I think financial institutions have a huge role to play, not just as product providers like an insurance product or a fixed deposit or any of the mutual funds, but as even enablers of confidence. And confidence comes with providing knowledge at the right time, at the right platform. And I think as financial institutions, we need to make information as easily accessible, decode the jargons, talk in the language that everybody understands it and not just the experts. So the more we simplify, the more we personalize, and the more we listen, I think the more empowered women can become.
Well, thank you, Geetanjali, for your time and valuable insights. We hope your advice will surely inspire and empower many women to take control of their finances. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruchira. Thank you.